This is a very interesting video. This is not necessarily Final Fantasy, but it is from a really cool channel that I follow, Game Ranks. I don't know if you watch them; they're pretty big. But they have a really cool video. It's called 10 Misconceptions About Gamers from Non-Gamers. This is actually part 2. I'm not sure if I watched part 1. Let me see. Okay, this is. Should we watch both of them? I think we should actually, because like this is a part 1 and this is a part 2, so it's kind of ridiculous to not watch both of them. They're not very long, and I think they're pretty cool.
GameRanks presents 10 misconceptions that non-gamers make about gamers. If you play games, which obviously we hope you do, what are you doing here? You'll probably feel our pain with this list. So let's get started with number 10. The first misconception that really bothers us is the belief that games are not beneficial. Meanwhile, online gamers have been solving science's biggest problems by solving puzzles involving genes, having bigger conversations about the universe, and more. There are huge fans of English, science, history, and more that are into games that are more than just about
I think this is because most people who don't play games will traditionally have this mindset where games are just shooters and arcades, and they know very little about, like, let's say, adventure and action-based games. And most people who know nothing about games will not know anything or very little about MMORPGs as a genre, or I don't know. I don't know if they know too much about like world building games, maybe because a lot of people have heard or played, like, I don't know, Sims or Zoo Tycoon or something like that. But most people, their first thought about games is just it is just like, I don't know, playing violent games and stuff. Like, not even the violent games are that bad, because when you think about it, would you rather have your kid, go out in the street and, shoot people? Or would you rather have them, sit at home and maybe let some of that frustration that they're feeling out through games? Like, that can be actually very therapeutic. Like, I don't know, like, people think that it's okay to, like, punch a punching bag if you're frustrated, but gamers solve it by, I don't know, going into, I guess, Call of Duty and shooting everyone. I don't know how that works, because I cure my frustrations in different ways, but I think it's very important to realize that games are not just, like, even those games, right? They teach you something. They teach you reflexes. They help you feel better. Like, I don't know what, I mean, yeah, sure, they show you violence, but violence is everywhere. Violence is on TV, violence is outside. Like, I think we're at the point where, kids can't really escape violence at all. So it's better to, teach them about the difference between digital violence and, the real violence. So let's not do the real violence, right?
shooting guns. Check out 2011's Fold It, an online puzzle game about protein folding. We brought this.
Oh, that one is a really good one.
Definitely worth looking into if you're a fan of science.
I played that one.
At number 9, what really bothers us is whenever people say that video games make people violent, when playing games really
exactly
people alleviate stress and release tension. There are a lot of studies out there supporting both sides, but if you just think about it and you know other people that play video games out there, is that we're generally a peaceful folk. Yes, we might commit murders in Grand Theft Auto and slaughter countless aliens, but at the end of the day,
exactly what I was saying.
A lot of video gamers that maybe hit an animal with a car and then freak out and grieve about it for 3.
Like, people often forget the roleplay aspect of gaming whatsoever. Like, I'm a vegetarian, right? Does that mean that when I when I log into any of my MMORPGs or any of the survival games, that I'm never gonna do hunting or fishing? Of course I will. Those activities are relaxing. That doesn't mean I go around killing animals in real life. Like, that's what people don't understand.
3 days. The idea that we're all bloodthirsty, violent school shooters is just so old hat. At number 8, we have the concept that just because you game means that you're automatically a nerd and know 4 different computer languages and can fix somebody's computer for free. We all encounter that somewhere. Just because you play Minecraft on the computer all day, your aunt thinks that you can fix her phone for free. You might not even know how to fix the phone. While many of us admittedly are, a lot of us aren't automatically crazy super nerds. We're not just gonna fix your shit or teach your.
I think most of the time guys will have this problem rather than girls. Like, okay, I personally have faced this because, well, I had my grandpa who, when YouTube came around, he was so obsessed with learning all about how it works because he wanted to be able to, like, play music for himself and stuff not. So he had like 1,000 questions, but it wasn't like, fix it. But at the same time, it was in a way. But like, I think guys who play games will usually be more perceived as techie by their like families and whatnot. So girls usually don't really get bothered because people don't. This is also the thing. Like people don't normally perceive girls as gamers either. So even if you are a gamer, there's a chance that no one will really, I don't know, just kind of just I don't know, take a look at that and see that as something that defines you. It sucks because sometimes it can define you, and I feel like in some way it defines me. But like people just struggle, connecting that to my personality, and in some ways it's good, and in some ways it's bad.
Your daughter how to play video games just because we're lonely and we would love the company or something. Because honestly, we don't. At number 7, a common misconception is that all gamers are guys. While I don't necessarily believe those polls that say 50% of gamers are women, I do know many a woman out there that plays video games and they don't suck at them.
He may have killed you a time or two. I don't know. He's good.
I'm really good.
They're not a poser fake gamer girl or anything like that. That whole idea that if you're a girl that plays video games, you don't really know what you're doing and you tend to lose is just kind of old-fashioned. And
It is, because like these days you're just gonna have like so many girls who absolutely kick ass in all kinds of games, and it's just I understand that male and female brains like work in different ways, but at the same time, the genitals that you possess don't necessarily define how good you're gonna be at a game, because everyone can learn how to play a game, and it's just I don't know, it just sucks as a girl.
Gonna get on a social justice warrior podium or anything like that, but you just can't deny that when you look outside, everybody's playing video games these days. And to deny that fact is just kind of a little silly.
There's another like misconception, I guess, about girl gamers is that like even if they do exist, that they're just these I don't know, always hot looking girls with like controllers in their hands being like, oh, I'm a gamer, like you don't have to look like that when you play games. You can look like a bag of trash and still kick ass at games. You don't have to be hot sitting in front of your PC and playing something. Like I don't know, like I just hate how that stigma has been created, and now I don't know, everyone just kind of sees it as default.
At number 6, we really have a problem with that idea that video games make you stupid. Studies have shown that playing video games can actually make your brain bigger. Seriously. There's a study out there that shows that playing Super Mario 64 for 30 minutes a day over 2 months increase an adult's brain volume in their right hippocampus, the right prefrontal cortex, and the cerebellum. These are the parts of the brain that are responsible for memory formation, strategic planning, muscle control, and spatial navigation. Stuff like that you do in video games every day, and it makes you better for it. Seriously though, have you ever felt like when you're driving you dodge something very quickly? I'm not saying we're all Spider-Man or anything, but I do think
yeah, there is that like big brain feeling when you do something. Like, you're learning how to multitask. You're learning how to pay attention. Like when I started playing games like MMORPGs or whatever, my reflexes were reflexes of a dead animal, pretty much. Like I couldn't like turn around in time, do stuff in time. I was such an anxious person. But like today, like I'm not saying I'm good, but I'm at least decent. Person, I hope would later give me a bit of money because I solved this phone problem. I mean, that's fine. Because, time is money, right? If someone is just going to, take advantage of you, I don't know, because they apparently think you're a techie, they might as well pay you. That's not a bad thing.
we all have better developments thanks to studies out there that prove this. At number 5, we have beef with the idea that sitting indoors all day means you have no friends. Players of MMOs have to deal with this stereotyping all the time. The reality is that people can make a lot of friends online and are sometimes even more social than people are in real life. Playing video games is a very social thing. You're constantly being fielded with friend requests.
Like all my friends are in game or here in the chat or whatever. Like, I mean, yeah, I do have some IRL friends who don't play games, but even most of my IRL friends will from time to time play some games, and they will also be a part of that social circle. This is so not true. And it's not just MMORPG. It's like all the games, because like there's hardly ever any gamer who is just going to, play games and be alone forever. Even through like some of the other social interactions, like, I don't know, through Discord, through Reddit or whatever, you're still interacting with people. They may not necessarily be your friends, but gaming is a very social activity.
And game invites on PSN, Xbox Live, and Steam, and whatever. And in 2 hours of playing video games, you might have more social interactions with people than some people do in a full week. This is the 21st century, where you can make friends that you don't live next door to, that you don't see very often, but you get to communicate with every day. I know I personally have made many friends online that I'm very thankful for, and I hang out with and talk to all the time in the digital realm. Maybe some people think I'm a loser. I don't really give a shit. And number 4, a big misconception that non-gamers have is that gaming is a waste of time. That's really just a hypocritical statement because most of these people that say video games are a waste of time will also go and watch the average of 2 to 3 hours of TV every night. You know,
And watching TV is a more passive activity than gaming, as well as the activity that literally allows other people to dictate what you're going to watch, what you're going to hear during the commercials, and your brain is just like an empty page where other people get to write stuff in it. Whereas you choose the games, you choose the people who you're going to play with. It's just a different world.
You know, everybody has to have a hobby, and hobbies shouldn't be considered a waste of time. It's something that you do to enjoy that makes you happy. And watching TV is passively consuming, while playing video games is actively consuming and really engaging all parts of your brain, reflexes, and motor functions. And that's honestly kind of more badass. You're having way more of a better time either playing with friends or engaging in a story or using your brain to solve puzzles. So you know what? Fuck you. It's not a waste of time at all. Gaming is just another form of entertainment just as much as watching a movie or TV or surfing the internet is, even though it can be argued that it's more engaging. At number 3, many of you probably have heard that you can't make a career out of video games, and that is absolutely not true. Don't let anyone
Should I even comment on this one? Come on. I mean,
tell you otherwise. Now, of course, you may not be PewDiePie or Total Biscuit or writing articles for IGN, or even developing the next Gears of War and becoming Cliffy B. But that doesn't mean you can't make it and create something or run something without the will to learn and a lot of hard work and elbow grease.
just like I was talking yesterday on stream, people are either forgetting or they haven't even reconciled themselves with the fact that there is such a thing as the middle-class streamer or middle-class YouTuber or whatever. You can still live off of your streaming or content creating income without being a millionaire.
Inspirational, but you can do anything you set your mind to, and don't let people tell you otherwise. Yes, of course, making it into video games is really, really hard, but if you got a good idea, some passion, the willing to work really hard, and the will to ever increasingly and never stop learning and developing new things will make you go really far. Go out there and make a game, write an article, record a video, do a podcast, do whatever, and show all those assholes that you can make something out of playing video games. At number 2, we have that misconception that video
Thank you.
Some gamers are really 50-50 on this, but the reality is if you consider movies or reading or literature art, you can consider games art. Yes, I like to think that games other than Journey and The Last of Us with sweeping stories and epic visuals are also pieces of art. Yes, even stuff like Call of Duty and things that are just more fun and
Oh, it's definitely art, especially nowadays with so many just different options and possibilities to create something amazing. Like they're definitely a piece of art. Look at Final Fantasy. Like, what is Final Fantasy if it's not art?
addictive and playable are forms of art because somebody made them. And now before you say that video games are corporate products, all forms of art were products sold for money at one time or another. Even Leonardo da
I'm gonna create for free.
Yes, maybe games like Candy Crush aren't art, but you really shouldn't let people who don't know any better shit on something that you really enjoy. Your favorite medium, video games, should stand on their own. And number 1, the biggest misconception that non-gamers make about gamers is that video games are for kids. Ugh, this one is so frustrating, and I get it all the time. Of course, the first basic video games on Apple II and Atari and stuff like that were intended for children, but the medium has grown just as the play.
I know more adults that play games than I know kids, and I know a bunch of kids, you know? Like...
who played them. The mainstream AAA market now is all geared toward mature gamers, and most games are rated M for mature. There's a reason for that, because the main audience is adults buying these things. But of course, there will always be a place for children in video games with Skylanders and even Minecraft and stuff like that. But it's a growing medium with growing pains, and a lot of the gamers who started playing as children have now grown up.
Stupid.
That being said, of course, if you play video games, I like to think that you do have a little bit of an inner childlike nature of excitement for the medium in you. And that's something you should never ever lose. Listen, never forget to have fun. So guys, those were 10 misconceptions often made about gamers. We know.
Imagine living your life according to what other people say you should be doing, according to your own age. Dude, my life would be so boring. Like, all our lives would be so boring. Like, imagine listening to other people when they tell you what you need to do. Who does that, right? Oh gosh. The FF14 poor gamer must have no friends at all. I know, right? In video games before it's really hard. Minimum wage pay at 70 hours a week. Yeah, if you're doing like a let's call that a regular job within the video game industry, where you're not like, I don't know, creating content per se, like the way I'm doing it, but like if you're actually working in like game dev or maybe journalism or something like that, those jobs are still pretty hard to well, let's say live off of, because The problem is the industry doesn't appreciate these people creating that type of content enough just yet. Like, look at what's been happening in I don't know, in Blizzard and many of the other gaming companies, like the way, I don't know, game devs and people who work at, like, I don't know, social media management or anything like that. Like, people get underpaid, mistreated all the time, and I think that's something that hopefully will become better at some point. Anyway, they have another video. This is another 10 misconceptions. This is a part 2, and let's check it out.
Obviously, we all love our video game. We all like spending our time a certain way, and we know a lot about ourselves. And a lot of the time, people outside of gaming don't really get it. Hi folks, it's Falcon. Today on GameRanks, 10 misconceptions about gamers from non-gamers, part 2. Starting off at number 10, the idea that older gamers don't exist. Now, your old avian friend right here talking to you right now, Falcon, I'm a little bit on the old side. Spring chicken, so to speak. Not a spring falcon either. And yet at the very same time, I am barely able to contain the hype that is gradually building over the thought of having Portal everywhere I go.
I don't know. Like, I mean, I think this is just one of these stupid prejudices. Can you say prejudices or prejudice? How do you say this word? I don't know. Anyway, I remember when I was still on Twitch, like, there was this really cool person. I can't even remember who that streamer is, but there's like a really cool grandma who does high-end raiding in World of Warcraft. She kicks absolute ass. And even though it's a highly reactive game, and she is, quite a bit on the older side, she has like massive audience and people just really admiring her work. I can't remember what she's called, but she is awesome. Like, I mean, even like, there are also games for older people as well. Like, when I was within the Hearthstone community, most of my fellow streamer colleagues, they would be between, okay, I don't want to offend anyone by calling you old, but between, I don't know, back then I was like 25 and my colleagues would be between like 40 and 60. For me, that was back then, that was on the older side. And now that I think about it, I realize that I'm, much closer to that older side than I think. But at the same time, like, Hearthstone is a card game. A lot of these card games and just slower games are made so that you don't necessarily need to have these crazy ass reflexes to be able to enjoy a game and be good at it. And even if they do require it, you can still do it. Like thinking that old people can't do, I don't know, high-end gaming stuff is a lie.
Average lifespan of a falcon is 13 years, and I've outlasted that by a couple of decades. But if that vintage is not quite enough for you, there are much older gamers who are frankly just utterly fantastic. One that I think deserves special mention
is that her? I think that's her.
Shirley the Skyrim grandma, who is just this awesome.
Oh no, that's not her.
Spends a lot of time enjoying life by doing what she wants, which is playing Skyrim. And really, that's kind of why older gamers do what they do. When I was young, I was obviously very entranced with video games, but that was an era where video games were way less advanced than they are now. Same time, I definitely did not have a job and was at the mercy of my parents which games I was playing.
Mercy.
Case. In fact, non-gamers out there might want to take a page from us older gamers. Playing video games just keeps getting better. And number 9, the idea that games don't have writing that is up to the standards set by, say, movies and TV shows. Now,
these people have not played Final Fantasy. Oh my god.
I'm not going to say that this was never true, but it's a stereotype that has persisted well beyond its time as an actual norm. Like, I'm not going to say I don't remember a time where the average game was not well written, but in this era, people know that that isn't going to fly. And even just to be frank, in those eras, there were a lot of incredibly well-written games. Some of the point-and-click adventure games I remember from my childhood were just mind-blowing. LucasArts and their various projects comes to mind, but that lineage has yielded us things like Disco Elysium, Night in the Woods. But further than that, role-playing games have always had something to say, and they've only gotten better through the years. And that goes for Japanese RPGs like
I mean, it all depends really on what you want out of the game. You can't call all games, games with terrible writing, because some games will not have almost any writing at all, and that's totally fine because that's not why you're there. But anyone asking themselves that question should realize that, there's a genre for people who want good writing.
The Final Fantasies, which have, I mean, I'm not going to say they aren't bizarre, but very intricate, detailed, and interesting stories. But there's stuff like Witcher 3, which is frankly a tour de force as well. If anything, I am a little bit disappointed with where TV has gone.
Yeah, definitely.
We had like the golden age of television. There was tons of incredible stuff going on, like Breaking Bad, Game of Thrones, etc. And the success of those things has kind of bred this era of things that look like those things and try to act like those things, but aren't quite there. Video games certainly had that era, but it's kind of gotten past it. I mean, a huge video game just released that George R.R. Martin wrote the scenario for.
Oh, what?
We're past that. At number 8, there's a lot of people that think that gaming is still like a niche hobby. Like, oh, there's just gamers down in their basements playing the games. They're just
I don't know. I think the fact that mobile games exist has at least done something to like close that gap between people who don't play games at all and people who, let's say, play console games or games on their PCs, because they are now feeling more uncomfortable when they want to say like, oh, games suck. Yet their phone is like filled with 20 different apps of like 20 different games that just kind of stop them from, getting these words out there.
Nerds, people with very, very narrow interests that are specific. That's not the case. Video gaming is a $175 billion industry, and while I am not exactly going to measure its success entirely by that, I mean, companies have gotten pretty good at bilking money out of people. In order to do that, you gotta have people to bilk the money out of, though. And there's a lot of them. And that growth has been tremendous. Between 2006 and now, it's gone from literally an $8 billion industry to well over $175 billion.
Crazy, right?
It's the second biggest entertainment industry behind television. Gaming is huge. There's so many people involved. An active multiplayer game with a good lobby, you can drop into and play against people from anywhere on the planet. You could not do that, especially that easily, conveniently, and quickly, if only a few people were playing.
Yeah.
At number 7, and this one really sucks, when non-gamers think you can pause an online game. This goes from
oh god, this is so annoying.
biggest first-person shooter to Tetris 99, and
it's like your mindset not developing at all from like 2008, but all you could do is like play an offline game. I mean, I had this thing with my mom, like when my mom did get me into games. But she never kind of moved on from this attitude of, offline games or like turn-based games to the actual I don't want to say real life. What is it? What's the word I'm looking for? Right, like real time or whatever. She just had the toughest time just going from dad kind of mindset to not interrupting me when I'm doing something online. I think bridging the gap is an understatement. Mobile is huge. Yeah, exactly. Like I don't think many people. I don't know. Like I think it's really helped. If anything, I'm not a huge fan of mobile games. However, that probably is a little bit hypocritical to say because I did used to play Hearthstone. I did play Hearthstone on my PC, but I also played it on my phone. And I know some people who treated Hearthstone exclusively as a mobile game, and I get that. But at the same time, being kind of a part of that community, I just realized that people who normally play games on their phones, they are at least somewhat aware of what happens like within the the gaming world. I mean, a raid can't leave during the run. Yeah, that's exactly it. Like with the MMORPGs, especially like when you're playing with not just with MMORPGs, but shooters, but anything really. Like when you're playing with a group of friends. It's just very hard to explain to someone who doesn't play games that other people depend on you as well, and it just sucks.
I have dealt with it one way or the other. I imagine it's probably bad for people who live with their parents especially, but even in my advanced age, there are people
Advanced
around
age.
me who ask me to do things while I'm playing, say, Call of Duty Warzone, and can't distinguish the difference between a single player and a multiplayer game. Now, I suppose that using voice chat, I could ask everybody to stop playing the game for a few minutes while I load the dishwasher or whatever, but I'm going to suggest that not everybody is going to put a hold on what.
Not really.
Not just because it's a competitive game where everybody's into it and wants to play, but also because life is short. We have limited time. We're spending the time playing the game that, frankly, we have to take out of our schedule. That's another thing you'll notice that the older you get, the more it becomes a problem. But paired with the fact that people do not understand that you cannot pause a multiplayer game, things can get really frustrating. At number 6, and this one is one that really hits home for me. Not every gamer has an awesome setup with a huge TV and RGB lighting that responds to what's going on the screen. I know that people love to post videos of that stuff, and those videos are cool to look at, but not all of us out there are willing to spend that kind of money on stuff that doesn't really affect the game. And a lot of the time it's because we don't have the money. Now,
Isn't it better to take that money and spend it on the games that you want to play rather than have a pretty cool lighting that no one's gonna see? Look at my setup. I stream, but my setup is nothing special really, and I could have this excuse to go ahead and just remodel my house in a way that it looks presentable. But at the same time, I'd rather save that money and get an actual piece of equipment that benefits the stream.
Fortunate to be in a job where gaming is the work. That's fantastic. That makes this hardly a problem for me anymore. I don't have an elaborate setup by any means, but I've got a nice TV. I've got some colored lighting. It doesn't respond necessarily to the game, but it's cool looking. I didn't always have that. In fact, that is a pretty recent development, and I definitely do want to take the time to thank everybody who watches these videos and enjoys them, because you're the reason. Anyway, gaming wouldn't be the sizable industry that it is if it were exclusively for people who have tons and tons and tons of money.
Yep.
It's not that we can't all save up for something. Again, I have done that thanks to you folks. But for me, the memory's still pretty fresh of playing games on a pretty small monitor that I'd got for really cheap, that I had on a cardboard box for a pretty long time. Granted, that...
Oh my god, I had that too at one point. I thought I was the only one.
It was years ago, back when I was brought on to gaming. But I'd say there's a lot more people playing games like that who invested several months
Good times.
gaming setup. At number 5, a lot of people assume that gamers play every single game out there. And as I alluded to in the previous point, that's not always possible.
Oh, that's definitely not true. I am very picky when it comes to games, and this is something that has actively stopped me from, being the variety streamer that I at one point have wanted to be. And it's still, it still sucks. When I have a ton of people, asking me to play a ton of different games, but I'm so picky and I'm extremely loyal to RPGs, and it's just very hard for me to play anything else.
A lot of people don't have time to play every single game, or they have a lot of time and they just really like one game. They want to be an absolute friggin' unit at that game, a beast, a savage, if you will. And they'd sink tons and tons of time into developing that particular game's worth of skills. A lot of people are incredible at that too. And yeah, there are some people that play Call of Duty, Fortnite, Battlefield, and every single thing that comes up.
Yeah, I have massive respect for game critics and people who have to write these articles about every single game that comes out. Imagine having to play all these games. I understand that for streamers, there are some games that you absolutely have to play, otherwise you're doomed like me for not playing Elden Ring and other stuff. But at the same time, it's not to that extent. You don't have to write a new review every week or something like that. It really turns into a job, and that's kind of tedious, isn't it?
saying that you can't do that and become an expert at all of those things. But a lot of people just don't. A lot of people also have like a primary game where they really work on being good at that and just sort of casually play the other games. For a while, that was Valorant for me. I was playing that probably 90% of the time I was gaming. That was also in the middle of a dry spell of some single player games, if I remember right as well. So, I mean, I guess it really just depends. But obviously, different people play different stuff and different amounts of stuff. At number 4, the idea that people always choose to kill people in an open world game or choose the evil option in RPGs, that these games are murder simulators. But that's really
Oh,
not
God.
actually the case. If you look at statistics that companies put up, usually people pick the good choice. Why? Because it's usually the thing that brings them to the good ending.
Normally, people would argue this with like saying that let's use World of Warcraft for example. A lot of people will say that that people pick Horde because Horde is more I'm not going to say more evil, but like more badass and more brute and savage and whatnot. But the reality of that is that people will pick Horde over Alliance because Horde has better stats and better glamour, and that's it. Well, transmog and WoW, I guess, but like that's pretty much the only reason. Yeah, some people want to be a genuine badass, but you can be a genuine badass in Alliance as well.
Absolutely can attest to this too. Generally, when I do my first playthrough, it's always whatever choice I think is going to get me the best ending. And then I'll do kind of an experimental playthrough where I'll often pick the bad choices. But then after I've done that, it's usually back to good choices.
Okay, is this does this in any way relate to how I'm being a jerk when there's the like in Final Fantasy MSQ, like when there's these replies and I always pick like the worst possible one? That's not it, is it? Like that's not being murderous. That's just being a little bit of a roleplay jerk, I suppose.
And yeah, I mean, people like to assume that all gamers are these moral deviants, and we're really not. At number 3, this is one that I think a lot of people really have a trouble with. Did you know that most people who play video games don't throw their controller across the room when they lose? I know that it's really popular to kind of let the emotions flow in like streamer circles because it certainly makes for a spectacle. But most of us really aren't like that. It's kind of related to the idea that whenever a gamer plays a horror game, they scream their head off. And that's just not true.
For me, unfortunately, it is because I am terrified of horror games. I don't think I can properly stomach a horror game. And to be honest, all of these people who actually actively rage, I think they are not streamers or content creators that I know of, at least. I used to go to this, it's like the PC arcade place with my friends, and we would sit at these like really long tables, and let's say I would sit here and like four seats away, there would be one of my friends who is, he's kind of a big boy. He can probably, I don't know, take on multiple people at the same time and not feel a thing when they punch them back. Like it's, he has quite a bit of strength in him. So what he's a League of Legends player, right? And every time something would happen, like my keyboard would be like here, and he would like smash the desk with his fists, and like all of our keyboards up until mine, because like I would normally sit in the corner, would like fly up in the air and they would go down. And we would all look at him like, what the hell? Like all of our equipment would just go up in the air. It was so ridiculous.
Certainly have an elevated stress level when I'm playing a horror game, but I'm basically dead silent the whole way through. Same thing goes for this though. It's just something that non-gamers...
Yeah, exactly. Equipment is expensive. Like we don't just go and throw away our equipment. Like if you buy something, especially with your own money, you're not just gonna go and break it.
Seem to just think gamers do. And again, it's probably because a lot of streamers are popular and do that, and that's kind of their image of video gaming. But if you want to be honest, I notice a lot of non-gamers tend to do the same behavior when they're frustrated with something else, and like they'll take it out on their phone. Somebody says something they don't like it and they throw their phone or throw something else. In my opinion, it's not prevalent in gamers. I think it's probably something that an equal amount of people do.
Yeah, it's a character flaw, not a gamer flaw.
Just across the board in society. And number 2, there are people who still call every single console a Nintendo. Yes, in 2022, I interact with several non-gamers that still refer to every gaming console as a Nintendo. And this is something that has bothered me for a very long time as a Sega fan in the 1990s, because while I had a Super Nintendo and liked it, I had to go fast. Understand? I get that the Nintendo Entertainment System was called the NES. I get that its sequel was called the Super Nintendo, and its sequel called the Nintendo 64. But even the Nintendo consoles aren't called Nintendos anymore. On top of that, while the most recent one, the Nintendo Switch, is absolutely dominating the market, Nintendo's had a couple of duds, and even confused people with the names of their consoles, like the Wii U. That didn't sell very many, and people were like, I don't know what this is. You'd think at this point, that whole every single console is called a Nintendo thing would be over, but nope. And finally, at number 1, gamers are losers who will be hashtag forever alone or never get a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. Like, we have to say, this is typically a stereotype that affected guys, but it certainly has affected other people. So this is going to be one.
This sucks so much.
But without being.
Just look at the amount of friendships and amount of relationships that have spawned from, like, I don't know, online gaming and communities and everything. Like, it's just wild to me that people still don't understand this.
Super cringe. But let me tell you, old Falcon ain't having trouble in that area. And I doubt you are either, honestly. It's like saying somebody who likes a certain band or like a certain TV show or something can't get a date. It's weird. Like, if somebody can't get a date, it's probably for reasons beyond the fact they like something.
Yeah.
That, like, at the height of the stereotype's popularity, only like cool jocks got girls. Yeah.
And when you think about it, you have to understand that there are people in this world who like all sorts of people. And by that, I mean all sorts of people. Like, people have, different sort of, fantasies, pics, fetishes, or whatever. And even if this was true, gamers would still have their targeted audience of people who like those people, right?
Yeah, there were stereotypes, and these stereotypes probably did have some root in some bit of truth, but I think it was exaggerated, personally. I don't know, have you seen the United States? I don't necessarily want to imply that there's a negative connotation in this, because for me, there certainly isn't, but we are not exactly a nation of jocks. Yeah, we have athletes, but we aren't all athletes. I think it's obvious. The population is kind of a dead giveaway that there's no specific type of person that is favored in terms of who gets to have kids, and you don't really get to have kids without having a partner. I mean, unless there's a large contingent of single-celled organisms that play video games. And yeah, obviously there are people that adopt, but that costs way more than an RGB lighting setup, let me tell you. But yeah, I am 100% sure that gamers are not by default forever alone. In fact, gaming leads so many people to each other. Video games are an enjoyable shared interest that when you find somebody who also enjoys them, that's like the best possible thing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that gaming has taken over and gamers are the new jocks or anything. I'm saying that the stereotype that...
It's not like, okay, I'm not implying that games are like dating simulators, but you can go into online gaming or any sort of community with a mindset to want to meet people and just, be okay with the fact that you might not, but also give yourself a chance if you do.
Gamers can't find love or even just a date.
Stupid.
I don't think they were ever true. I think they were a media creation because, frankly, it's been...
Imagine the first generation of gamers ever. If those people weren't able to like get a date, gamers as a niche group of people, they would just, I'm not saying they would die out, but you wouldn't have these you wouldn't have these like family traditions of like some games being, I don't know, passed from like parents to kids. You wouldn't have these like, you know, gaming families that like enjoy gaming together or whatever. Like, it just doesn't work like that.
Long time since the nerds inherited the earth. And that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. So click the subscribe button and don't forget to enable all notifications. As always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. And we'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.
It's those were really good videos. I really wanted to watch this series with you guys because I think it's, I don't know, like, I mean, it definitely makes us feel better about ourselves, but it was also really true.